like Dusty said, I'm really glad to be here. It's always really special when we get to come back and meet and gather in this place at Cornerstone. I mean, I remember the day I lined up on the front of this stage here with, over 100 people, and we were sent out to start a new work from this place. And every time I stand right here in this particular place, it's special to me. This is kind of where I cut my teeth, and this church helped train me, and I learned how to teach and preach from this very space. It's really special. Tonight, literally, as we're meeting right now, down the hall is Cornerstone's executive team. They're meeting tonight, and it was interesting. I got to visit with them before, and they're praying for us tonight and aware of what we're talking about and everything, and they're celebrating. Talking about how awesome it is, what the steps that we're taking and where we're at. And then tonight before we began with our leaders and executive team who's here, we prayed for them. And so it's a really beautiful partnership that's happening here. So tonight I'm going to share a lot of things. You have a handout that's on your table there. If you want, you can go ahead and grab this. I know we're actually recording this tonight. We're going to have some friends that are probably going to watch this a little bit later. And so if that's you out there, you can actually get access to this from our website, embraceauburn/immeasurably more. This is our 2019 update. So I'm going to be walking through that a little bit. But here's what's happening. Tonight I'm going to share a lot of things. We're actually going to talk some about a building. We're going to talk square footage. We're going to talk some finances and numbers and budgets and all this kind of stuff. But before we get to any of that, you need to know what all this is really about is people. This is about people. When you go home tonight and you pull onto your street or you drive onto your neighborhood, you're going to pass 10 houses somewhere along the way on your way home tonight. And 6 of those households will be families that are completely disconnected from a church, from any church. And so we can't go on from there and know exactly what that means in their lives and whether they know Christ or not. But most likely, I know for sure they're not living within a body of a church that's encouraging and sustaining them and walking with them. But there's people all around us in this community who are living apart from really knowing God and the love that He has for them. And so before anything, what all of this is about people, but it's not just about people. It's about Jesus. Because we know, every one of us, we know that when people embrace church, what they encounter is they encounter Jesus. And we want to see more of that happen. We've seen that happen. I mean, we could spend this whole night just telling stories about our lives and friends around us and the way that Jesus has met them in hard, hard places. The ways that He's set people free from shame. From those things that they hide on the inside that they think, man, I wish nobody knew this about me, where He meets them in those places. And we're people who are not afraid to stand with each other in those kind of places and say, no, Jesus actually wants to meet you in this kind of place. And all of that, all of the work that Jesus is doing in people that we've begun to see, the work He's doing in families, restoring people's lives, the way He's meeting people in their lives and generations after them are being changed for eternity. The way all that is happening, we're just drilling this down to 4 words. Everything I just described here, we just boil this down for us to 4 words. It's just embracing people, empowering disciples. You got it? Embracing people, empowering disciples. I want to hear you say that real quick. Just say it with me. Embracing people, empowering disciples. That is the mission that Jesus has given this church, what we're joining Him in doing. But here's the thing. We can do that a whole lot better when we are much more sustainable as a church. And that's what really this whole building project, and we're at this juncture in the life of this church where it's time for us to take a step. Sometimes it just blows me away. I think we just forget. Like sometimes I have these moments where I begin to realize how much God's grace is on us in the simple, ridiculous kind of things. It's like I think about how like right now over there at Lee Scott are 2 trailers parked with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and sound equipment and all that kind of stuff. That stuff has been baking in there all summer. We know when we open up that trailer how hot it is in that thing. I mean, it's well over 100 degrees. It's been baking in there for 7 years. There's been mornings where we've gotten to those trailers and the locks are frozen. We're having to breathe on them to unfreeze them so that we can turn the numbers and unlock them, and there have been times where we bring in the equipment, it's been sitting out there in, under 20-degree weather a few times. We bring it in, and the condensation, we're just like, man, we hope nobody gets electrocuted when we start plugging this stuff in. It's just amazing how fragile, if you're on the setup team especially, this kind of stuff. We're dealing with a little issue right now with Lee Scott's security system and these wires that they have at the back door that we have to disconnect to get all our stuff in. We have to reconnect it. But the problem is those wires weren't designed to be disconnected and reconnected 52 times in a year. And so we just, we have a lot of struggles, little things like that, A couple months ago, our youth ministry, they were having this big youth kickoff that was happening. And many of you know they meet at Auburn Christian Fellowship. And they're so gracious to let us be there. And but Josh Hillier and his team, they put so much work into this day. Announced it, just had a big crowd coming, all this kind of stuff. And then, he got the call every youth minister in a church in our situation would hate to have. And it's 2:30, and they start at 4:30, and he gets a call that, hey, guys, you can't meet here tonight, And I see this text, I'm like, oh, my gosh. And then so I look at Leslie, and I read it to her, and she just looks at me, and this is who Leslie is. She's like, you tell them to come here. And so that night, we got a little picture here, but man, we had over 52 kids come to my house with a 2-hour notice. You know what I mean? And I don't know if any of you have ever had 52 kids show up at your house, at a 2-hour notice, but it was pretty interesting. But it was beautiful. It was like, man, this is the stuff of, we roll with the punches. This is kind of how we are as a church. But the reality is that, this just isn't sustainable for the long haul. But it's more than just trying to get away from something. It's going to something. We just know that we can do this stuff that's in our heart. We just know that we can do this so much better. And so as you look at the bottom of this, you see these 3 things here of just embracing more people, empowering more disciples, engaging more of our community. We just know that God is, like Dusty was saying, He's given us this piece of ground that's on daggum North College Street. I don't know there's a better street in Auburn to be on with that. We are, I think, the second fastest growing city in the state, and this piece of property is in the fastest growing part of the second fastest growing city in the state that God has provided and given to us, and we were able to pay with cash. What a gift that is to be stewarded, But we're at this pivotal moment, this pivotal time, and we are the ones that are at this place in this time to take this step as a church. So I'm just going to jump into this a little bit. As you turn the page there, and the first thing I just want to kind of talk through is, so where are we right now? We've been at this thing, it was since last October, really, when we got really serious about casting this vision. And what happened the first Sunday in November was something that was pretty amazing when we all came together, so many of us here, and made commitments. Kids, youth, everybody was just like, you know what, we're in. And there's been many times I've taken this stack of commitment cards, and I've brought them to an executive team meeting a few times, and I just sit them on the table in front of all of us. And trust me, like we said, we don't hand them around and look at them and see. Nobody knows that kind of stuff. But we put them on the table, and we're like, look, these people believe. These people believe in this mission. They believe in this church. And so, and we are the ones to steward the gifts that are given in this. And it's weighty, But something happened on that day. We have raised in commitments 3 times beyond our annual giving, which was around $400,000, almost 3 times that amount. It's unheard of a church of our size to do something like that. And so a lot of people would ask, okay, so how's it going? Where are we at? So as of right now, of that $1,114,653, we've actually received cash and gifts that have already come in of $382,800 $380,000 to $860,000. So this is right at about 35% of that 1.1 million. And even though it's kind of like we're saying, well, we're at a 1-year mark, but we really started this in October. A lot of people started their giving in January, and it was for a 2-year period, 24 months ending December 2020. And so we're really about 15 months into the, we have 15 months remaining of the 24 months. So Greg Powell, who's right here with us. Greg, would you just wave your hand? Everybody, most of you know Greg Powell here, but Greg Powell's on our executive team. He's our finance chair. And I'm telling you, man, I'm so thankful for this dude. He can crunch every kind of number and make a spreadsheet just whistle like you wouldn't believe, man. This dude is awesome. He does a fantastic job. But you'll see the remaining, what's remaining for us to receive 100% of that fulfillment is the $731,000 that's there. But also, let me just tell you, Greg has a more extensive report. If you're someone who's like one of those numbers people, who you just love spreadsheets and numbers and all that kind of stuff, see Greg after tonight. He has another report that's a total building project report that really gives total numbers of what's happened since 2015 when we first opened a bank account and called it a building fund. So it has everything leading up to last October and where we are right now. If you want to dig in even more than that, we have a spreadsheet that has line item of every dollar that is spent on this project, all the way down to you can see where we went and bought some weed killer to spray kudzu out there at the property. I mean, we have 100 complete transparency on this. You can look at any part of this anytime, and Greg Powell can help you do that. So that's where we're at. Total committed of 1.1, really amazing. Then you look down towards the bottom to the building project cost, okay? Last fall, we shared a projected estimate total cost of this building project at $3.4 million. We got to that number by looking at other light construction. We didn't have firm, architectural plans that we could get bid out or anything like that, so we just took an average of what light construction was like, looked at our square footage, multiplied it, that gave us a number. Obviously, the number that is there right now is not $3.4 million. You'll see it's right at $4 million. But let me tell you a little bit about this, about the journey that we've been on. Our building team has worked through the last year to firm up the actual architectural plans. And we've done the best that we can to just really to make this as nimble as we can, but still meet the functionality that we need to have in a building that it still achieves its purpose. So we did that. We got all the way through these plans, and then we reached a point where we were able to take these plans. We had enough of them where we could take them to some construction companies and start to get real live numbers and say, okay, they would actually bid it out. They called, their subcontractors and got numbers from them. Okay, looking at these plans, what's it like to do the plumbing and the bathrooms and the electrical and the lights in the parking lot and the asphalt and the striping, the pavement, everything, just like what a total number is. And so that happened it was about 60 days ago. We got back a number that was a total project cost of $4.5 million, okay? And for all of us who've been working so hard in this, it was just like a punch in the gut. It just felt like this thing's over. How are we going to do this? $4.5 million, this is crazy. This is not what we thought we could do, And so, man, we got to work. And our building team, our staff, we did some really hard work and just started to dig in as much as we could. And we went and visited other churches. We're literally walking into rooms, measuring square feet and seeing how can we minimize this and just everything we could to try to get this cost down as much as we could. And so eventually, if you look at the layout here of the building, you'll see it on your handout, but you'll also see it on the screen here as well. We ended up just realizing, we're just at this point where we cannot minimize the square footage of this building. When we do that, we just minimize it we're at a tipping point where it just will not be functional for us in the future and for the things that we're going to need to do. But the one thing we thought that, hey, we can do is this area that you see in gray there, kind of would be over on the left part of the building there. That was going to be offices. And then the corner up near the lobby was going to be a 24/7 prayer room. That was kind of going to be an expensive little corner because it had a separate entrance, had to have a vestibule to meet code, had to have a bathroom, all doors, all this stuff. And we just realized, okay, if we've got to cut something, we're going to cut our offices. And we're going to minimize that. And we realize we do need a few offices there. We need a few private spaces, but everything else we really needed to keep intact, the worship space and the kids' areas. And so you'll see what we have in these plans right now is where we would still build a shell, the exterior of that part of the building to maintain the same square feet overall, but we would have about an 1,800 square foot area that is unfinished, that literally is walled up. There's gravel in there. Nothing's happening. It's got all the electrical and all the things that we would need to eventually move into that and expand into that. But we looked at that. Also, we're so fortunate to have Brian Wood and Jason Forbes on this building team. And I mean, we just started having conversations, going to lunch with builders, showing them the plan, saying, what can we do? You got any ideas? I mean, we're just like doing everything we can to try to bring this down. And we found a few that were very helpful and helped us look at some ways that we can probably incorporate some more value engineering where the way that it's designed can just be more cost effective. But in the end, we were able to get a bid in making these changes, changing a little bit of how the framing works, some things like that, to where we could get this down to a $4 million total project. And what the number really came down was from a 3.5 building down to a $3 million. And when I say building, I'm talking about the slab and then everything on top of it. That doesn't include parking lot, lighting in a parking lot, asphalt, decel lane coming in, landscaping. That's what the other civil site work is at the 750. Then you'll see the other $250,000. That's furniture, fixtures, equipment. That's toilet paper holders and soap dispense. I mean, just all the things that are going to have to come, with the building that we're looking at a $4 million project. That's really the reality of where we are right now. The reason it's changed in the last year is because we're in an amazing economy here in Auburn, and our subcontractors are in high demand. That's why all your houses, some of you who want to put your houses on the market now, you're getting top dollar right now, and that's just the market that we're in. It is expensive to build right now. So notice there's a little bit of difference between 1.1 million and 4 million, okay, right? You see that? So our executive team in the last 60 days, it was really the beginning of August when we started we've been kind of waiting to get these numbers in, and also knowing October's coming. We're at this midway, and we're going to need to lead our church forward, and so how are we going to do this? What are we going to do? So the first thing is we jumped on all that work I just described to you, and man, we worked so hard. We started crunching every kind of number imaginable. We've been meeting with multiple banks. I mean, Greg and I are up 10 o'clock at night texting each other, looking at spreadsheets, and he's running numbers and scenarios and looking at trends and just every kind of thing you could imagine, every kind of number that we could crunch, we crunched to try to figure out how we can do this thing. But at the same time, our executive team started praying. And we had multiple meetings. We typically meet once a month. We met a little extra during that time. But we also started fasting, and as Dusty mentioned. And, for some of us on this team, we'd never done that before. And I remember I could just kind of feel it in the room when I said, guys, this is time. This is beyond us. We need to hear from the Lord. We need wisdom from God. And we began inquiring of the Lord. And it's like I said that, and so we took 4 weeks in a row where we took one day a week, and we just said for 24 hours we're just not going to eat from Sunday night till Monday night. And, It's Monday night at 5 o'clock, and I'm standing in front of the pantry just about to eat anything I can find in there, when the end of this thing's over. But God began to work and move in us during that time. And, the people on our executive team, I just want, if you're here and you're on our executive team, I just want you to stand up right now so you can see these folks. Jason Forbes, Dusty, Greg, Jessica Mercino, Josh Hilliard, Cody, Amanda, John Miles in the back. We also have Dave Harley. Dave Harley couldn't be with us, and also Mandy Baker. Both of them are out of town on some things that they already had planned as well. But I'm really proud in the best kind of way of these people and these leaders. We've worked our tails off, and it's a weighty, heavy thing, this kind of stuff that we're talking about here. And we truly got together and fasted and prayed and did this thing. And but let me also say that all those people that just stood up there, we all have some different perspectives about how to approach this situation here. Just in the same way that all of you would, We got some people who are over here on the ultra Dave Ramsey track, that we deal with nothing but cash, you know what I mean? And then all the way over here of like, shoot, let's go borrow $4 million. Let's break ground next month, kind of thing, and kind of all over the place. And honestly, most of our team's probably on that spectrum somewhere. But God did something in us when we started praying. And so about a month ago, we got together, and this is where I want to talk about some of these next steps here. It's kind of like there's this question that's been asked since last October, and it's just, so what are we doing now? We raised this $1 million in commitments, and so what's the deal? What are we doing? When are we doing this? Are we still doing this? What's happening? And we wanted to be able to answer that. So we met, and we were prepared and coming into this last meeting, and we knew that, hey, it's time for us to make a decision. We're going to go one or two paths in how we lead our church forward, okay? Kind of one path is going to be a posture where we're like, you know what? We're just going to stay at Lee Scott absolutely as long as we need to. And we're going to stretch it out as long as we need to there, and we're going to keep raising money and try to get to 2 or up to hopefully $2.5 million, and to go after a $4 million project, and we don't know how long that's going to take. We got commitments right now of 1.1, and when this Immeasurably More is over, we might just wait a few years and do it again, but we'll just keep going at Lee Scott, and go as long as we can in that kind of way. And then another kind of pathway is, you know what? It's time, and we need to take a step. And at the end of this giving initiative, at the end of 2020, we're going to take a step, and we're going to break ground on something. We're going to go for it. And so we laid out those two things and talked about every kind of implication you could imagine going either way with both of those things, and kind of did the typical old pros and cons, and what do you think, and all that kind of stuff. And we just got all that out there. And then we started talking about this. I just said, okay, so now I want to ask the real question. What is God saying to you? And nobody gets out on this one tonight. And so we went around the room, all 12 of us shared, and I went last. And it just started, and in the beginning, every single person there could tell a story, or just God spoke to them in a way that fit who they were, and they just shared about how God was saying, go, it's time, take a step. And so I have my notes right here from that night. I literally just wrote everybody's name, and I wrote down. We heard things like this: I will take care of you. Commit, take this step. It is my joy to give to you and to provide to you. It's time. Take a step. Faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of we do not see. I'm asking you to move before you're ready to move. You're waiting on a knight in shining armor to rescue you, but I'm sending an army it's time to follow through. I mean, so many of these things just kept coming, and it was just like building, and we knew that God was saying it's time. And honestly, as we talked about it more, what was happening is I think for so long, honestly, we just haven't really wanted to take a step of faith. We would much rather see it all work out on paper and make it look really safe, and and have all the provisions show up ahead of time, and then we take a step. For me, personally, I would much rather stand up here in front of you and say, man, you're not going to believe this. Somebody showed up and they gave $1 million gift, and so we're really at a $2.1 million, and so now we're ready, so now we're going. But, that'd be a wonderful story, and I'd still love to meet that person, but we really just have this deep in our core belief that God is leading and telling us to take a step and to not fully see before we take a step. I was the last to go that night because a lot of times in these meetings, I don't want to influence what other people are sharing in that. And so I shared at the end, but I shared this, how on Tuesday, September the 9th at 4:30 a.m., and I'm just reading from my journal here, I was laying in the bed like a lot of nights over the last few months, and I was laying in the bed stewing, not praying, stewing. You know what I'm talking about? And just festering, and just like, I just don't know. What are we doing? And in my mind, I'm playing out my worst fears. I'm like, are we going to die at least, God? And if we go out there, are we going to be the church that everybody knows, the name of some kind of church along the way that took some kind of stupid step and ended up going bankrupt and failing, you know what I mean? Or are we going to end up being there one day and being dead up to our eyeballs, where I start to feel this pressure that, like, instead of really being genuine about preaching the gospel that he's put in my heart, it all turns into just trying to get people to give money so we can pay the bills. I mean, those are the real things that churn around in my head, y'all. And in the middle of all that, in the middle of looking at potentially a $3 million, maybe even more, debt, I just heard these simple words: I'm there. I'm there. And of course, I went into the mode that we all go into, of like, okay, God, is this you or is this me? Is this me talking to myself or is this you? You know what I mean? And by this time in my life, I'm like, look, okay, I said that to myself. I'm like, okay, I know that's you. I know it's you. I know every time I even begin to say that it's always you. And even if it's not you, I'm going to say it's you, because I'd rather fail and be wrong in the right direction of faith that it is you. So I get up at 4:30 and I just go sit down and I start writing all this stuff, And he's just speaking to me. He's like, in that scary place, in the unknown, in that murky future, in that debt, I am there waiting for you. Come to me. When you step out, I'm there. I'm there. He sends his people into the unknown. Have faith. Take a step. Josh, I want this church to bless this community. The step that requires the greatest faith, take that step, And there's so many other things that week that God was speaking to me in, and I just shared that with everyone else. And I was like, everybody, it just feels like we've climbed up this daggum high dive, We've climbed up the ladder of this high dive, but we're standing at the end of this board, you know what I mean? And we've been standing here for quite a while, and we don't want to climb back down. That feels disobedient. It doesn't feel like the right thing to do. Like, we've climbed up to the end of this thing, and we're just kind of standing there, like paralyzed and frozen, because we don't see what's ahead and what we're jumping out into. We don't know what's out there. It's hard and unknown. We're not exactly sure what's going to happen, even though we've crunched every kind of number, every kind of possibility. But, honestly, it doesn't work out that great on paper all the time. But that night, and here's this picture. I just want to show you this picture of this team that night. We knew, and those of you who were there, who stood up a minute ago, something happened on that night with us. And the next few days after that, we couldn't stop texting or talking about it. And actually, honestly, showing up here tonight, all of us, we look at each other, and we are overjoyed to share with you. Because I'm telling you, in myself, I have a peace and a confidence and a resolve to take this step forward in a way that I have not had in a year and a half. And we knew that night that what was happening is we're standing on the safe end of this diving board, and God is saying this: it's time to start running. It's time to start running with everything you have to the end of that diving board, okay? And we don't know what's going to happen. We're not going to jump off next week, and we're not going to jump off next month. But on that night, this team made the decision that we're going to jump off that diving board, and we're going to break ground in January of 2021. And we've got 15 months to run to the end of that diving board and to watch and see what God's going to do among us. But it's time to start running. And so when you see in this little handout here how it says, like, this number one thing here, step out in faith together, that during this month, what's happening is our executive team, we're just asking this church to step out. To step out together with us. And to let's go and do this. That we don't exactly know how. We're at this place in the whole design of architecture in the building where we just can't do anymore unless we're going to take steps forward. And we're prepared to do that now. So we're inviting you to start running to the end of that board with us and see what God is going to do in this. And so on the back here is a little thing, and this is how we run, okay? This is how we start running together. And the first thing that we do is we pray, all right? So I'm asking you tonight, and I'm going to ask people this past Sunday. I did it this past Sunday as well, but I'm asking you to take both of your feet and put them on the ground at 2142 North College Street and to start walking around and making circles, walking around that land. Tomorrow morning, John Miles and I are meeting. We're putting up 14 scriptures that have meant so much to us in the last year. And we're going to encase that property in that Word of God. It's going to be on the edge of that property, signs that are going to be put into the ground there. And we're just asking every single person to start walking around that property and reading that passage and praying that and letting that Word be spoken into our hearts and over that land as we start praying to see God's glory in this. And so we're going to have a 2-week period where we're inviting people to do that leading up to the 27th. If you show up and you see some other cars there, no big deal. Just keep going. Do it anyways. You know, you don't have to talk to anybody. There's plenty. There's 7 acres. You can spread out a little bit. So, but we're asking you to pray. That's the greatest thing we can do right now. The other thing is to commit. And as I look around the room, I know so many of you have already done that. And you'll see a commitment card that's there on the table and included in that. But this one's a little different than what we had last year. That we're actually kind of making room for a few different things here. One way that people can take a step is if this is all new to them. I know that there's a number of people who they're not on this journey fully with us yet. Either they weren't here a year ago or just weren't at the right place to make that kind of commitment, but just opening the door for that to happen at this point. And then the second thing is that for so many of you who are already on the journey, to just make a commitment to fulfill your commitment. You know what I mean? That what you set out to do last year, to actually fulfill it and do that. I've had a few conversations with people who've made a commitment, and it's actually pretty tough for them to fulfill it. And I hadn't let them off easy. And I've said, hey, God was with you. I believe He was a part of that, and just be patient and wait and pray. Pray. And see what He does. I heard of someone the other day who they weren't sure how they were going to make their commitment this year, and they had an unexpected kind of business deal that happened and it was $17 more than what their commitment was for this year. And so they were able to make that commitment. And as soon as this happened, they were like, that's it. That's what it's for. God provided so that we could provide. It's those kind of things that are happening along the way where it's like, people, this is a lot. This is so much bigger than just a building or money. He's doing a much deeper work in us. And let me tell you, you're going to want to be with us the next 3 Sundays, but the next 2 Sundays, you're going to hear a lot more stories of this kind of stuff happen. I'm trying to hold them back tonight, but I'm not going to hold them back in a couple of weeks. I'm going to let the floodgates open and let you hear some of the stuff that's been going on. So, but make a commitment to fulfill your commitment. And then there are some people that maybe they're prepared to expand their commitment. If maybe your commitment was pretty easy to do, then maybe consider, hey, maybe I can go beyond that. We're creating room to do that. And then finally, we've had a number of people just ask, like, man, can I just go longer? Like, I'm not really sure I can expand it right now, but I could go longer. And so we have a way on that commitment card to just let us know if you wanted to go further beyond 2020 and go into 2021, that you can do that. And then the last thing is just to give, to just do it. And take that step of faith in giving together. That's how we're going to run. We're going to run by praying, by committing, and by giving. And we're just asking you if you'll do that. So tonight, that commitment card, you're not supposed to do anything with that tonight. We're going to worship out on the property in 2 weeks. And that's where we're going to bring that. And we're going to stand in that place underneath these beautiful white oak trees that are already there. And we're literally going to set up the stage in the place where it's going to be, one day in a building. We're going to worship and stand on this ground, in this moment. And so do everything you can to be there in that moment. And so God is at work, and He is calling us to take a step of faith. And I'm just asking you to ask God, what is my part in this? And so we're going to pray right now. John's going to come and begin to lead us. We're actually going to worship and sing a little bit. It's going to be some things that you're familiar with and we can do together. But so John, if you can make your way and join me. But I'm going to begin to pray, and we're just going to give some space to be quiet here for a moment and pray. And then we're actually, in a different kind of way, in a few minutes, we'll gather, and we're going to pray as a whole big group before we get out of here tonight. So just join me as we begin to pray and just be quiet for a moment. So God, we just thank you for your clarity and for what you've been doing in us all along. And I just really thank you for you being patient and working in our leaders, and for that night when we were gathering there. And it's like, Lord, we can move now because we've heard from you. And we're just asking the rest of this body to listen as well, and not just to us, just kind of asking them to confirm that in their own spirit as they pray and listen with you, God. And so right now, we just want to give some space and just ask you personally, God, what is my part in this? What is my part in this? And would you speak to us now?